Hi golf, it's Nick here from Golf Tech Singapore. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. This week on Golf Tips is the final part of my 5-part series talking about the 10 words of the stack and tilt golf swing. Trail foot here, as it goes through, I'm kind of banking it in this way. I'm not spinning out. That's one of the biggest issues I see of golfers that sort of push too much pressure onto the toe and spin it this way as opposed to pushing it forward. So you may have seen the previous 4 parts of this series, and it's worth watching all 4 parts before you watch today's lesson because it's going to link everything together. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the stack and tilt golf swing, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'm putting tips out every Friday just showing you guys how to improve your golf. Over the first 4 parts of the swing, we've talked about where the weight should be, we've talked about how the shoulders should move, we've talked about what the hand should do, what the arm should do. Now the final part to this series is going to complete the golf swing, it's going to complete the stack and tilt golf swing using the 10 words. So the final 2 words that we're going to learn today is to do with the finish position of the golf swing, and this is something that all of the best players do. Every good player that plays the game will finish the swing in a similar way. There's a lot of similarities in the golfers I teach and the high handicappers on how they move into the finish position, and I've talked a lot about this finish position using the motion numbers that we use here at Golf Tech. But today we're just going to discuss the movement and show you guys what it should look like for when you practice your golf swing. We've talked about building the golf swing by keeping the weight forward, moving the shoulders down, which is the tilt of the shoulders, moving the hands inwards, which is starting to create power and to help with the curve of the golf ball. And we've also talked about keeping the arms straight and not flexing the elbows. So the final 2 words are to do with what the hips do in the golf swing. So in the backswing, the hips will turn in a circle on a tilted angle, as do the shoulders. In the downswing, the hips will now continue to turn, but also they'll start to slide forward this way. Now the highest handicapper golfers, all they do is just turn on the downswing, and what that does, it changes the swing path, moves the path outwards. It also moves the low point behind the ball. Now the best golfers will have a combination of rotation and also slide towards a target. So the final 2 words are linked into what the hips should do in the finish position. So by the time we finish the swing, the hips here should be tucked under the shoulders. So on the finish, hips tucked under the shoulders, and that will help me keep my balance into the finish. The highest handicappers, as they swing through, they'll tend to lean more forward with the chest, keep the chest forward. This is staying in flexion of the upper body, and this will tend to lose power and it becomes a very steep way of swinging the golf club. As we come in to hit the ground, we need that body to extend into the finish to help us keep turning and to help shallow out the swing. I think a lot of people that make mistakes, especially when they're first learning stack and tilt, they actually stay forward for too long and that swing becomes very steep into the ground. We need to extend the body. Another problem I see that golfers that are trying to work on the finish position, as they go through, they almost lean back like this. Now we want the spine to extend forward. So if I put this club on my sternum in a backswing, that's going to roughly point horizontal to the ground. So that's my chest extending in the backswing. Now as I go through, we want that chest actually pointing more backwards in the finish. That's the extension of the spine, and as we go through, the hips will also point very slightly backwards. They're not staying forward as you go through. So we have a slight backward bend of the hips and the shoulders in the finish. Now one of the mistakes I see are golfers that are trying to work on this, trying to extend in the finish. They almost lean too much on their back leg. They keep too much flex in their legs on the finish. The best golfers will be straightening their body into the finish. So the legs are straight, the chest is bent backwards, the hips are tucked under the shoulders. So the final 2 words, hips tucked. This isn't just a stack and tilt thing. This is every good golfer that plays the game through the period of history and modern day. Every good player extends their legs and their body into the finish and tucks their hips under the shoulders. So I'm going to hit a shot here. We're going to take a look at my swing in a second, but as I swing through, I'm going to really try and push my hips forward. I'm going to try and straighten my legs, try and push my hips under my shoulders on the finish. Now, when I do that, if you watch my trail foot here, as it goes through, I'm kind of banking it in this way. I'm not spinning out. That's one of the biggest issues I see of golfers that sort of push too much pressure onto the toe and spin it this way, as opposed to pushing it forward. We call this it's like a bowler. If you imagine a bowler at a bowling alley, when he bowls that ball, does that, that's going to draw the ball as well. So as I go through, this foot is banking in this way, helping me extend my legs and my body into the finish. So let's hit a shot. Okay, so pretty good swing there. So I tried to put all those pieces together, the 10 words. Weight forward, shoulder down, hands in, arms straight, hips tucked under the shoulders. I struck it pretty good. In terms of the data there, 92 miles an hour out the middle. Let's sit down now and take a look at my swing in a little bit of detail. The final piece that puts this jigsaw together is hips tucked, and that's basically the body extending. That's helping the hips still turn and rotate while also sliding towards the target in the finish. Remember, the best golfers push their weight through by sliding their hips. The chest points backwards in the finish. All these movements combined will help you create power, it will help you keep your arms straight, it will help with the contact as well. So all these 10 words are linked together. So just taking a look at our swing here, the main focus of the final 2 words is the hips tucked in the finish. So we're looking at where the body position is in the finish, but also I want to reference where our hips start. So you can see I've got a line on my right leg there. If I take my swing through to the finish position, you can see how much forward my hips have moved. They've also raised up. So if you take a look at where my belt is here and where it finishes, you can see how my hips have moved forward and up. That movement of pushing the hips forward and up helps the hips turn into the finish. It helps release the hips from being forward into a slight extension or backward movement into the finish. I would suggest watching all parts in order. I think that's so important if you've not managed to see the first 4 parts, because everything links in together. All these movements combine to help you hit the ball further, straighter, and with a better contact. So golfers, I hope you enjoyed the series. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't already, please follow me on my other social media platforms, and we'll see you again next week for another video on golf tips.